They stole my father's watch, pawned it for startup money, and told me I should be grateful they didn't take more. That's the day I realized my family saw me as nothing but a resource to exploit. Hi, I'm Savannah. For years, I kept my head down and let them walk over me, believing blood meant loyalty. But the day I got a call from the pawn shop, the day I discovered my own brother sold the only thing my father left me, was the day I decided to fight back. Ever felt betrayed by the very people who were supposed to protect you? Would you draw the line if your family crossed it, or would you let them keep taking? Tell me in the comments, what would you do if your own family treated you like collateral? Let's go back to the moment everything changed. If this is your watch, then somebody sold it without asking you. And I think you need to know who. The voice on the other end of the line was gravelly, but careful. At first, I thought it was a prank. I almost hung up, but something in my gut told me to stay on. This is Savannah Ray, I said, heart starting to hammer. Who's calling? My name's Vince Delgado. I own Delgado's Pawn Out on 82nd and Maple. Got something here I think used to be yours. A Rolex Submariner. I froze. No. No way. I reached down, opened the drawer in my desk, bottom left under my calendar. Empty. It had been there yesterday. I saw it. I touched it. Ran my fingers over the back, like I always did. The inscription. To my daughter Savannah, may time always be on your side. Love, Dad. I remembered the last time I saw it on his wrist. Dad was in his hospital bed, thinner than I'd ever seen him, but still managing a smile. This is yours, Savvy, he whispered, clasping my hand with what strength he had left. This doesn't just tell time. It tells you where you come from. I had cried then, not just because he was saying goodbye, but because he trusted me with something he wore every single day of his life. I swallowed hard. The watch is gone, I whispered. I figured, Vince said. Can you come in? I'd rather show you than talk over the phone. I didn't even log out of my computer. I grabbed my bag and ran. The whole drive, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. It wasn't just a watch. It was my father's final breath wrapped in steel. The one thing he left only for me. Delgado's Pawn sat between a payday loan office and a rundown tax service. It looked exactly like you'd expect, flickering neon, bars on the windows, a yellowed sign that once said, no refunds, no returns. Vince stood behind the counter, thick forearms crossed, eyes narrow. A gold tooth peeked when he talked. You look like him, he said simply. Your dad. He came in here a couple times. Always paid on time. Didn't try to haggle. Good man. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. He ducked into the back and returned with a leather box. My stomach dropped. This came in yesterday, Vince said. Guy claimed it was his. Had ID, paperwork. But the moment I saw it, he opened the box. The Rolex lay nestled inside, familiar yet somehow smaller, more fragile. Once, when I was 9, I'd twisted the watch crown too hard while trying to reset the time. I cried, thinking I'd broken it. Dad had knelt beside me in the garage, lifted my chin, and said, if you're careful and you learn how it works, you can fix anything, even time. Then he taught me how to use the level from his toolbox. That's when time stopped being just numbers to me. It became trust. My eyes burned. Vince looked at me carefully. The guy who brought it in, Jackson Prescott. Ring a bell? It did. Loudly. He had my watch. And he sold it like it was a used blender. I was checking for authenticity, Vince went on, and I noticed something odd. Time slowed as Vince opened the back of the Rolex. The quiet click of the hidden latch echoed like thunder in my ears. I could almost hear Dad's voice, low and steady. They'll come for it one day, kiddo. But if they do, you'll know what to do. Inside was a tiny folded note. I didn't read it. Figured if your dad hid it that well, it was for your eyes. My hands trembled as I opened the note. Box 512. First National Bank. The key is inside my red toolbox. Look in the level. The watch is yours. But what's in the box is your future. Don't let them steal it. Dad. I blinked fast, holding back tears. Take it, Vince said, sliding the box across the counter. I can't. You can, he cut in. Your father helped me once. My wife needed surgery. We couldn't afford it. Your dad patched my roof for free. Said to pay him whenever. Never brought it up again. This is me paying it forward. He turned away, pretending to clean a shelf. I picked up the box, clutching it like it might vanish. As I clutched the watch, I instinctively rubbed my wrist, the spot where I used to wear it during college. It had left a faint tan line back then, like it wanted to be remembered even when I wasn't looking. As I turned to leave, he added softly, "This thing's seen storms. But it's never looked this betrayed." Outside, I stood for a long moment, breathing hard. Then I looked down at the key I now held, rusted, brass, tucked in the corner of the box. I tightened my grip on it like it was the last lifeline I had. By the time I reached the tall marble steps of First National Bank, my face was set. Whoever thought they could steal from me and walk away was about to learn what betrayal really looked like. He needed the money more than you needed sentiment. Don't be selfish, Savannah. Darla's words hit me the moment I stepped into the living room. She didn't even give me time to take off my coat. For a second, her voice seemed to echo from another night, months ago, after my father's funeral, when the house was cold and the leftovers untouched. Back then, she put a hand on my shoulder, squeezed, and said, "Family is about sharing, honey. We can't cling to things just because the person is gone." Even then, it had stung. Now it burned. I didn't speak. Not yet. I walked straight to the center of the room and placed the watch, my father's watch, on the coffee table between us. Its silent tick drew all their eyes, the only real movement in a room full of fidgeting hands. The coffee table was scattered with startup magazines and empty coffee mugs. Jackson glanced up from his laptop, eyes flickering with annoyance, then discomfort. For a moment, his hand hovered midair above the keyboard, then dropped, fingers drumming, but not steady. He tried to act cool, but his knuckles were almost white. "Who sold it?" I asked, my voice flat. Jackson rolled his eyes and leaned back, legs crossed. "Relax. It's just a watch. You weren't even using it." His lips curled, but the way his left hand tapped on his knee gave him away. My blood turned cold. "Using it?" I echoed. Like it was some kitchen appliance collecting dust? Clyde cleared his throat, adjusting the collar of his golf polo like he was at a board meeting. "Jackson needed capital. He has a pitch next month. Investors are circling. You've got a stable job. He's building something. So am I said calmly. It's called a life. One my father left me a piece of, and you decided to trade it in for buzzwords and fantasies." Jackson smirked, but his fingers twitched on the laptop keys, thumb tapping faster. "It's not like we melted it down. Vince still had it, right? No harm done." That was when I dropped the police report on the table. The thud echoed louder than it should have. For a split second, all noise vanished, no TV, no phones, just a thick, heavy silence. It was like the room itself held its breath. I watched Darla's hand flutter automatically to her collar, smoothing it as if straightening a mask before stepping on stage. Her eyes darted from the paperwork to me, then back, mouth pinched tight. "Savannah," Darla started, her voice shifting into that saccharine maternal tone she used on church ladies. "I filed it this morning. Here's your name." I pointed to Jackson's on the highlighted line. "Filed under suspected theft of heirloom property." Jackson blinked rapidly. I saw his right hand tremble, the pen between his fingers clicking open and closed without rhythm. "You're serious?" I locked eyes with him. "Deadly." Darla leaned forward, chin high, smile brittle. She pressed her blouse into place with slow, practiced fingers, her classic Showtime routine. "Honey, don't do this." Family shares. That's what we do. You wouldn't even have that job if we hadn't supported you after college. You charged me rent above market rate, I said, and never once split groceries. That's not the point, Clyde jumped in. Jackson is your brother. He's trying. He has vision. I glanced at the watch, sitting perfectly still among the clutter, a silent witness, gleaming under the ceiling light. He is dead. That's all he's proven. Silence hung like smoke. Then Darla's voice hardened. You're clinging to relics, Savannah. That watch, your father, he's gone. We're still here, and we need to move forward. My breath caught in my chest. For a moment, I almost let it go. Then I remembered. The last Thanksgiving. My father's empty chair. Jackson laughing too loudly. Clyde talking over his photo. Darla brushing away my correction like lint. I had watched them erase him in real time. I'm giving you until Friday, I said, standing tall, to return the full amount you got for that watch. Or I let the report proceed. You'd press charges? Jackson barked, voice cracking. His left hand jerked, almost knocking over his mug. I'll do more than that, I said. I'll make sure every future investor Googles your name and sees felony theft before they even see your LinkedIn. His smirk vanished. I want my money, and I want it now. Darla stood. You ungrateful. But her voice trailed off, the performance faltering. I'm done, I said, grabbing the watch. And so is my patience. I turned toward the door, pulling out my phone. The photo of the key, brass, worn, still nestled in the red toolbox, glowed on the screen. Behind me, no one followed. Not this time. If you're reading this, then someone crossed a line, and you need to finish what I couldn't. The words were written in my father's slanted script on creamy paper, folded neatly inside the envelope I found in the bank's sterile safety deposit box room. My fingers trembled, the chill of the metal table biting through my sleeve. For a second, I saw myself at 12 years old, clutching another letter, fresh ink and the words, "You're the best thing I ever did, Savvy. Never doubt your worth, even if the world forgets." I'd hidden that letter under my pillow for years, reading it on nights when the world felt cruel. But this was different. This was my father's voice, reaching out from the grave, arming me for a war I hadn't known I'd need to fight. The bank manager, Mrs. Leung, watched from the doorway with professional detachment. "Take your time, Ms. Ray," she said, voice calm as marble floors. Inside the box was a thick manila envelope, a battered red leather notebook, and a single Polaroid photo of my dad holding up a level in our old garage, grinning at the camera. I touched the picture with my thumb, feeling the ghost of calloused hands. I opened the envelope first. Bearer bonds. Stacks and stacks of them. Official, dated, clean. The amount made my heart race. $127,000, give or take. Nestled underneath was a business card for Monica Chu, estate attorney, and a short note. "If you ever need help, trust Monica. She's family." The notebook was heavier. I flipped it open and the scent of old paper hit me like sawdust and motor oil. Inside, lines of debts, contracts, client names, painstakingly documented in my father's forceful handwriting. No skipped lines, no crossed-out errors, just relentless neatness. I found my own name at 12, a checkmark next to private school tuition, paid in full. As I turned the pages, I landed on a list of unpaid debts. At the top, underlined twice, Wexler and Sons Construction, $15,000. A string of smaller amounts followed, all marked with notes. No payment. Owner says come back next quarter. Promised after Christmas. Refused to answer calls. At the bottom of the page, in smaller handwriting, a chilling line. "If something happens, Savvy, don't let them take from you what I couldn't." I pressed my eyes shut, the pain raw and fresh. Then I put the photo of my dad face up on the table like he was watching over my shoulder. The steel light glinted off his smile in the Polaroid. He looked both proud and unyielding. The door to the vault swung open, and a woman in a tailored navy suit stepped in. Sharp bob, unreadable eyes, confident stride. Monica Chu. She glanced at the bonds, then the notebook, then me. "You must be Savannah," she said, holding out her hand. I shook it, my grip stronger than I expected. "My father said to trust you." She nodded once. He was the most meticulous client I ever had. "Let me take a look." I watched as Monica paged through the notebook, her eyebrows rising with every line. She didn't even flinch at the sum. "These are all actionable, especially Wexler. Their reputation matters. They're still solvent and prominent." She flipped to a later page, her finger pausing. "Did you know Clyde Prescott is listed as a subcontractor on several invoices?" My blood went cold. "That's my mother's husband." Monica's lips tightened. "That could be useful. Now, do you want this to be quiet, or do you want to make noise?" I saw my father's handwriting again. "If you're reading this, someone crossed a line." My voice was steel. "I want it public. All of it. They stole from him and from me. No one buries this." Monica nodded, eyes gleaming. "Good. I'll start the process. Some of these debts are old, but they're still enforceable. We'll put pressure on the big ones, start with Wexler. If anyone gives you trouble, you call me." She pulled out forms and a pen. "I need you to sign here, here, and here. I'll handle the filings and notify you once the first responses come in." As I signed, her phone buzzed. "It's starting already. Wexler's counsel wants to talk. They know what this means." I closed the notebook, hand firm. "If they stall, I want them named in the local press." "That's my style," Monica said, almost smiling. "Your father knew how to pick his allies." When everything was done, I packed the bonds and notebook into my bag, but I lingered one last time on the Polaroid. Dad's eyes crinkled at the corners, the same way they did every time he told me he loved me, serious but never cold. Monica turned to leave, but paused. "You're not alone in this. Remember that." I nodded, unable to speak. In the corridor, the hard light flickered. My footsteps echoed on the marble, but the weight on my shoulders felt lighter than it had since the day I lost him. In the car, I flipped through the notebook one last time. Near the back, a page marked with a bent corner. I stopped, breath catching as I saw the name. Clyde Prescott, under unpaid commissions. It wasn't just Wexler. My mother's husband had been cheating my father, too. Piano notes rang in my ears as I drove home, slow and melancholy. But under it, a cello began to build, steady, unstoppable. I was done grieving. Now it was time to collect. I may be quiet, but I know how to make noise that hurts, in all the right places. I used to think the only way to get anything in this world was to stay invisible, to let other people's ambitions thunder while I kept my head down, working, paying bills, never asking for more than scraps. But now, sitting in Monica Chu's law office, white walls covered in flowcharts and legal diagrams, I felt the first taste of power, sharp and clean. Monica sat across from me, her smile tight, a stack of freshly printed letters on the desk between us. She tapped the top one, eyes flashing. "This is how you rattle them," she said. "No warning. No whisper. We let every debtor know we're coming, and we do it in writing." I nodded, tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear. The air felt thick with anticipation. For a moment, Clyde's voice echoed in my head, Thanksgiving dinner, when he leaned back, wine glass raised, and declared, "Savannah will never make waves. Doesn't have it in her." He'd laughed, and Jackson had echoed him, their confidence filling the room like cigar smoke. I let the memory settle, then smiled to myself. Send them all. Monica did. Email after email, certified mail, faxes, calls. She was relentless. Within 2 days, half the companies on my father's list had replied, some shocked, some indignant, a few groveling for terms. Wexler and Sons, the biggest name, sent back a curt letter. Insufficient documentation. Deceased client. Not actionable. Monica snorted, sliding the letter across the desk. They think you'll back down, she said. So we escalate. When Monica announced the press conference, the air around us seemed to shift. The morning of the event, nerves buzzed under my skin. I stood alone in the corridor behind Civic Hall's main auditorium, holding my father's notebook, waiting to go on. As reporters shuffled by, two older journalists stood a few feet away, voices low but clear. Just a family spat for the papers. Bet she'll fold before this is over. The other replied, she looks like she's about to faint. All talk, no teeth, watch. The words pricked, but instead of shrinking, I stood straighter. I remembered how my mother used to apologize for me being too quiet in school. She's shy, not built for confrontation. Today, their doubt only fueled the fire in my chest. In the press room, Monica handled the logistics with military precision. As we waited for everyone to take their seats, Monica strode over to the Wexler rep, a man with slicked-back hair and a pinched, dismissive mouth. He extended his hand lazily. You really think a couple pieces of paper are going to change anything? He sneered, dropping his voice. Around here, we handle things off the record. Monica's eyes didn't blink. People who fear the truth always want to handle things in the dark. But today, we're turning on every light. I caught the way his face tightened, his mask slipping for just a second, and several reporters, catching the tension, swung their cameras toward the confrontation. That's how I found myself standing in the middle of the Civic Hall's main auditorium. The press gathered. A dozen local contractors and business owners crowded in, phone cameras at the ready. Monica took the mic first, reciting the legalese, outlining my father's legacy and the debts owed. The room was tense, half the audience with arms folded, the other half pretending to check their phones. My turn. My hands didn't shake. I stepped up to the podium, clutching my father's notebook and a photocopy of his last letter. Flashbulbs popped. I cleared my throat, the microphone sending my voice echoing across the parquet floor. This is my father's handwriting. His work. His blood. For years, these companies borrowed his labor, his tools, his sweat, and never paid what they owed. I am not letting it die with him. There was a hush, thicker than velvet. I flipped open the notebook, holding it up so the cameras could see. Wexler and Sons owes $15,000. Here's the signed contract. Here's the check he wrote for supplies. Here's the signature. I stabbed the page with my finger, of Clyde Prescott. My mother's husband. The man who said I'd never amount to anything. Gasps and whispers swelled through the hall. The Wexler rep, a middle-aged man in a sharp suit, looked like he wanted to disappear into the carpet. He tried to protest. Miss Ray, your documentation. Monica cut him off, striding to the front. We have legal claim, public records, and we are prepared to file in court. Or you can honor your contracts today in front of the community and the press. I watched Clyde from across the room, cell phone pressed to his ear, lips drawn thin as wire. He mouthed something to himself. This will ruin my contacts, my deals. But all his power now looked like a cheap suit that didn't fit. The Wexler rep caved, voice trembling. We'll settle the full amount. Today. No press, no lawsuit. Too late for that, Monica said, smiling coldly. A moment later, with flashbulbs blazing, I stood at the front of the room holding the $15,000 check. Monica stood to my left. To my right, a framed photo of my father in his work clothes, face smudged but proud. The local paper's photographer snapped a photo. Me, defiant, my father's memory vindicated at last. A reporter rushed forward, recorder outstretched. Miss Ray, do you have anything you'd like to say to the community? I looked her dead in the eye. He earned it. I'm just collecting what's owed. And that was it. No speech, no monologue, just the truth. On the edge of the crowd, Monica leaned in and whispered, "They thought you were weak."
Good.
The arrogant always underestimate the quiet ones. I almost smiled. Slow motion. The room faded behind the camera flashes as I pulled out my father's letter one last time. The light catching my face, a spotlight, for once, not a target. My hands were steady, my voice strong. I watched as Clyde slunk away, shoulders bowed. I left the hall to a chorus of whispers and the buzzing of cell phones, my phone pinging as I walked. An email. "Your new lease is ready. Keys can be picked up Friday." For the first time since Dad died, the world felt wide open. "You broke my trust, not just a promise. And now you want mercy?" If there was ever a day to say goodbye to ghosts, it was this one. The light filtering through the living room windows made the old Prescott house look even more faded. Dust in the corners, furniture pushed out of place, the scent of coffee clinging to the stale air. My suitcase clicked behind me as I dragged it down the hallway for the last time. For a second, I flashed back to that terrible morning after Dad's funeral, when Mom hugged me tight in the kitchen and whispered, "It's just us now, Savannah. I'll never let anyone hurt you." That promise was dust, too. I didn't wait for ceremony. I boxed up my last things, a few books, Dad's battered tool belt, a photo album with corners curling up like leaves in October. Jackson's voice drifted from the den, pitched low for effect. "Mom says you're packing up? We could use a hand with groceries, you know." I ignored him. He was always the type to toss a lifeline only after burning your boat. Darla appeared in the doorway, eyes puffy and desperate. "Savannah, baby, can't we talk? This is your home. Family doesn't turn on each other. You're going to ruin everything. You'll send Jackson to jail. For what? Some old watch." I met her gaze, calm and unflinching. "I'm not the one who broke the law, Mom." She started to sob, the same high-pitched wail she'd practiced so many times over the years. "I tried to keep this family together after Father died. I did my best." I zipped my suitcase, snapping the lock shut. "Your best was letting them steal from me. I'm done." Jackson strolled in, hands in his hoodie pocket, trying for sheepish but landing somewhere between cocky and bored. "Look, it was just for seed money. My app is almost ready. If you just chill, I can pay it all back with interest." I raised an eyebrow. "That's what you said about the food truck.
And the crypto.
And the last startup. How'd those work out?" He grinned, but it was all teeth and no warmth. "This is different. I've got a partner this time. We're about to close a round." I cut him off. "I want my money now. Not after your next fantasy fails." He shrugged, turning away, but his bravado slipped when I pulled out my phone. With a few taps, I emailed everyone. Darla, Jackson, Clyde, a PDF of the police report, Jackson's name highlighted in red, subject line, "Formal notification, theft investigation." The silence was instant, sharp as glass. Clyde emerged from the kitchen, smoothing his hair, wearing his best fatherly concern face. "Savannah, let's not make this messier than it needs to be. If you have any spare cash, maybe $5,000, just a little help to get us over the hump, I'll pay you back when Jackson IPOs." I stared at him, speechless. "You still think you can ask me for anything?" He shrugged, eyes already drifting past me, calculating, dismissing. Jackson tried again, voice rising. "You're not going to leave over this. Not just for something. We're family." I turned, standing my ground. "You call it a thing? That's not a thing. That was Dad's last message to me. A legacy you both tried to erase."
He scoffed.
"Chill out, Savannah. This is about money, not feelings." "No," I said, voice steady. "It's about respect, and the fact that none of you ever gave me any." Darla's voice cracked. "If you walk out that door, you're turning your back on all of us." I gathered my things, pausing only to look Darla dead in the eye. "I paid my rent every month. I paid for my food. The only person who ever really cared for me is already gone. I'm done begging for a place in this house. I walked to the front door, suitcase in hand. At the threshold, Jackson called after me. Come on, save. All this over a piece of jewelry? I glanced back. You call it jewelry. I call it a promise. Darla reached out, but her hands just hung in the air. I pushed the door open, felt the warm late afternoon sun break across my face, and stepped outside. For a heartbeat, I stopped on the porch, listening to the sounds inside, their muffled arguing, Darla sobbing, Clyde already on the phone, Jackson cursing under his breath. I didn't turn around. A taxi waited at the curb. I climbed in, resting my suitcase on my knees. As the car pulled away, the house receded in the rearview mirror, dark and small and far behind. My new address was scrawled on a slip of paper in my pocket. 10 minutes later, I stood in front of a modest house with white siding and big windows, everything inside gleaming with possibility. The keys felt heavy and cold in my palm. I took a deep breath, slid the key into the lock, and turned. The click sounded loud, final, a door slamming shut on years of old wounds. Inside, the garage was cool and clean. Dad's tool set sat on the workbench, right where I'd placed it earlier that week. Sunlight slanted across the floor, lighting up every shadow. For the first time, I felt truly alone, but I wasn't lonely. I was free. They thought they stole a watch, but what they really tried to steal was my time, and I took it back. The first morning in my new home, sunlight spilled across the hardwood floors, warm and unfiltered, as if the universe itself was finally done with shadow games. I sat on the edge of my bed, the silence wrapping around me not as a threat, but as a promise. The old house had always felt heavy. This one was weightless. In my palm, my father's Rolex. I pressed the hidden latch, and the secret compartment slid open with a familiar click. Inside, the slip of paper he'd written years ago, his handwriting strong, steady. Time is the only currency that matters. I ran my thumb across the faded ink, letting myself remember. All the hours he'd worked, all the late nights, every sacrifice he never let me see. The day unfolded in a way that felt both ordinary and new. I went to my job at the local woodshop, just another Tuesday. The sawdust clung to my jeans, but I didn't mind. At lunch, I repaired a neighbor's kitchen chair, refusing payment when her shy son handed me a crumpled $5. Tell your mom I owe her banana bread. I joked, and the boy grinned, the kind of smile that doesn't come with strings attached. After work, I strolled down the block to my new house, passing yards where kids chased soccer balls and sprinklers spun rainbows through the air. On my front porch, I paused to hang the wooden sign I'd carved myself. Ray Residence, established on truth. The wood was sturdy, the letters deep. A little girl from next door trotted over and handed me a loaf wrapped in a kitchen towel. Mom says thank you for fixing our fence, she said, wide-eyed. I smiled. This is the first thing someone's given me without asking anything back. Inside, Monica's voice buzzed on my cell. Savannah, you're going to want to check your account, she said, half laughing. We settled 3 more claims today. 43 grand. And a few companies want to handle things privately. They're scared to face you in court. We'll finish what your dad started. I grinned, feeling the weight in my chest finally break up for good. Thanks, Monica. You made all the difference. No, she replied. You did. Enjoy your peace. They can't touch you anymore. Late that afternoon, as the neighborhood wound down and the air cooled, my new neighbor, Mrs. Torres, invited me over for a backyard barbecue. I hesitated at first, old habits of keeping to myself, but her warmth was genuine. Around the picnic table, her 2 kids told stories about their day at school, offering me a seat as if I'd always belonged. There was no judgment, no questions about my past, just laughter, good food, and the gentle glow of string lights. When I left, her youngest tugged my sleeve and said quietly, I like sitting with you. You always smile for real. The words caught me off guard, settling somewhere deep, a gentle assurance that I finally fit. Back at my place, I spent an hour sanding down an old bench in the garage, letting the rhythm soothe me. Dad's old tools gleamed on their hooks, lined up by size, just as he'd taught me. The garage door was half open, letting in the golden hour sun. I realized I wasn't waiting for anything or anyone. No more proving myself, no more waiting for acceptance that would never come. For the first time, I simply was. That evening, as dusk wrapped the house in indigo and the world outside softened, I brewed a cup of tea and settled onto the front porch, placing the Rolex on the small table beside me. The air was quiet, broken only by the gentle chirping of crickets and the tick, tick, tick of the watch. I thought of Dad sitting beside me years ago, one hand steady on my shoulder, teaching me how to listen. You know, Savvy, peace isn't when everything's silent. It's when you can be alone and not feel lonely. When you hear the clock and it feels like home. I closed my eyes, breathing in that old lesson, and let the steady ticking fill the spaces inside me that used to ache. My phone pinged with notifications, but I ignored them. Later, I checked the news out of idle curiosity. Jackson's startup was gone. Website erased, LinkedIn silent. Office for lease sign in every online listing. Rumor had it, he'd skipped town to dodge investors. Clyde's name came up in a blog about failed contractors, a footnote to someone else's warning tale. There was a missed call from Clyde. I didn't even listen to the voicemail. Darla texted late at night. Family is forever. I stared at the words until they blurred, then deleted the message without replying. That evening, as dusk cooled the house, I sorted through final paperwork. With steady hands, I wrote a letter to First National, closing Dad's old safe deposit box. Everything in there was mine now, earned, not stolen, not begged for. The house was quiet, but not lonely. I curled up on the living room couch with a mug of tea, the Rolex ticking steadily on my wrist. For the first time, the ticking didn't sound like a countdown. It sounded like freedom. I turned the watch over, pressing the secret compartment closed. I didn't need to hide anything anymore. Still, I kept the slip of paper inside, not as a shield, but as a reminder. Some legacies are worth fighting for. The next morning, sunlight found me on the porch. I held my wrist up, letting the light glint off the watch, gold and strong. Time is the only currency that matters, I whispered. And this time, every second is mine. In the silence, I could hear the Rolex ticking, clear and steady. Tick, tick, tick. Now my life is quiet, solid, and entirely my own. I wake up each day knowing that no one can steal my dignity, my peace, or my time ever again. What I've learned is simple but hard one. When you finally stand up for yourself and protect what's rightfully yours, those who built their lives on taking from others will always face the consequences. Real strength is choosing yourself, even when it means walking away from the people who should have protected you. Have you ever had to reclaim your worth after betrayal or stand up to someone who crossed a line? Share your story below. I want to hear how you fought for your own peace. And if you're ready for more stories about justice, family drama, and rising above betrayal, don't forget to subscribe and join me for the next journey.